Concise history of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Chapter 8.3 Military activities after Battle of Uhud. The Battle of Badr established the dignity and power of Muslims. On the other hand, the Battle of Uhud wiped that out. Each internal enemy, Jews, hypocrites, and Bedouins, was keen to exterminate the existence of Muslims. Quraysh also intended to attack Medina to achieve their goal, which they did not achieve in Uhud. The Prophet ﷺ had to tackle the internal and external enemies simultaneously and regain the military reputation of the Muslims. The Prophet sent several military expeditions to regain the dignity of the Muslims. Some of those activities will be described now. Number one, the event of Rajia in Safar 4 Hijrah. A delegation of Udul and Kara came to Medina and requested the Prophet ﷺ to send some teachers with them. According to Bukhari, 10 teachers were sent with Asim bin Sabit as their headman. When they reached Raji well, 100 archers of Banu Lihan attacked them. Muslims took shelter on nearby hills. 7 teachers were killed. Only Hubayb and Zaid bin Dasna and another companion were left. The Bedouins offered safety to them if they came down the hills. So they came down, but Bedouins broke their promise and killed one of them and took 2 others to Mecca and sold them. Safwan bin Umayyah bought Zaid bin Dasna and then killed him to take revenge of his father's death. Hubayb was first kept in a prison and then they decided to put him to gallows. He requested his executors to let him perform 2 rakah salat. They granted the permission. As mentioned in Bukhari, Hubayb started this tradition of offering salat before execution. It was later reported that he was seen eating a bunch of grapes shortly before his execution, although there were no grapes in Makkah at that time. Abu Sufyan said to Hubayb before his execution, "Don't you wish that it was Muhammad here in your position so that we execute him and you were at home with your family?" Hubayb radhiyallahu anhu said, "No, I don't wish even a thorn hurt the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam." The Quraysh sent some people to bring the body of Asim since he had killed some prominent leaders of Quraysh in Badr. These men saw that Asim's body was shielded by a large swarm of hornets. Asim had made this pledge to Allah that he will not touch the body of any disbeliever and his body should not be touched by any disbeliever. Umar bin Khattab radhiyallahu anhu heard this news and said, "Indeed, Allah protects his believing slaves after death. Indeed, Allah protects his believing slaves after that, after the death, just like he does during their lifetime." This is in Bukhari. The second activity is the tragedy of Mauna well, which was in Safar 4 Hijrah. In the same month and year, an even sadder tragedy than Raji took place. Abu Bra was his nickname, but his real name was Amr bin Malik, came to Medina and the Prophet ﷺ invited him to Islam. He did not accept it nor did he reject it. He said to the Prophet, "If you send your companions to the people of Najd, I am very hopeful that they will accept Islam." The Prophet ﷺ said, "I am afraid that the people of Najd will kill them." He said, "I will protect them." According to Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ sent 70 companions who were knowledgeable in Quran and jurisprudence, that means fiqh. On their way to Najd, they camped at Mauna well. Haram bin Milhan took the message of the Prophet ﷺ to Amr bin Tufail. Tufail killed Haram bin Milhan. Tufail ordered Banu Salim to attack the rest of the companions. The companions fought the idolaters till they were all killed. Only Ka'b bin Zayd survived, who was carried wounded among the dead. He lived till the Battle of Khandaq. Umar bin Umayyah and Munzir bin Uqba were grazing camels. They saw some birds flying over the battlefield. They rushed to the scene. Munzir fought the idolaters and was killed while Umar was taken as prisoner. When they found out that he belonged to Mudir tribe, Umar bin Tufail freed him after cutting the hair on his head. Umar did this to fulfill the pledge of his mother to set a slave free. On his way to Medina, Umar took rest under the shade of a tree. Two men from Banu Kilab also came there to sleep under the shade of this tree. Umar killed both of them to take revenge of his killed companions. When Umar informed the Prophet ﷺ about it, he said, "Both had a pledge." The Prophet ﷺ said that both had a pledge of protection from me. Their blood money is a debt which I have to pay. The Prophet started collecting their blood money from the Muslims and their allies, that mean the Jews. This act later brought about an invasion of Banu Nadir. The Prophet ﷺ was deeply grieved by these tragedies. The Prophet ﷺ was deeply grieved by these tragedies. He then invoked wrath of Allah for 30 days in Fajr for the culprits of these two tragedies. This is mentioned in Bukhari. The third activity, Ghazwa Banu Nadir, Rabiul Awwal 4th Hijrah. According to Medina treaty, the Prophet went to Banu Nadir to raise the blood money to pay for the two victims of Banu Kilab. Some companions were with him too. Jews agreed to share the blood money and seated the Prophet and his companions near a wall of their house and told them to wait there. Then the Jews met privately and planned to kill the Prophet ﷺ by dropping a big stone on his head. One of them advised against it, but they did not listen. In the meanwhile, Jibreel informed the Prophet ﷺ about their wicked plan. Hence, the Prophet ﷺ hurried back to Medina, and the Prophet told his companions about the plan of the Jews. The Prophet ﷺ told Banu Nadir through Muhammad bin Muslima that they have to leave Medina within 10 days, otherwise their heads will be cut off. The chief of hypocrites, Abdullah bin Ubay, told Jews to ignore the ultimatum of the Prophet, since he will help them with his 2,000 men, and Banu Qurayza and Banu Watfan will also help them. Allah mentioned this in Surah Al-Hashr, verse 11. O Muhammad, have you not observed the hypocrites who say to their friends among the people of Scripture who are disbelievers, if you are expelled from your homeland, we will definitely go out with you too, and we will not obey anybody regarding you. And if they, that means the Muslims, fight against you, we shall definitely help you. And Allah is witness that they are indeed the liars. As a result of this, Banu Nazir refused to leave Medina. The Prophet ﷺ and his companions set out to fight them. The Jews shot arrows and threw stones at the Muslims from their forts. The Prophet laid siege of their fort for 6 nights, in another version for 15 nights. The Jews had advantage of thick palm trees between the two parties. Hence, the Muslims cut down some of the trees and burnt them as described in Surah Al-Hashr, verse 5. O believers, the palm trees of tribe Banu Nadir, which you cut down or burnt, and those which you left standing on their stems, all this was with the permission and pleasure of Allah, and it was to disgrace the rebellious people to Allah. The hypocrites did not come to help Banu Nadir. It is also described in Surah Al-Hashr, verse 16. Second example of hypocrites in deceiving their allies is like that of a Satan. When he says to man, disbelieve in Allah, but when the man disbelieves in Allah and Allah punishes him, Satan says, I have nothing to do with you. I fear Allah, the creator of the universe. Banu Qurayza and Banu Ghatfan also did not come to help them. Allah put fear in the hearts of Banu Nadir, and they agreed to obey the Prophet's order to leave Medina. The Prophet ﷺ allowed them to take with them whatever they could, including doors, windows, and beams of their ceiling, as mentioned in Surah Al-Hashr, verse 2. He, that means Allah, expelled the disbelievers from the people of Scripture, that means Jews tribes of Banu Nadir, from their homes at the first gathering. O believers, you did not think that they will ever abandon or get out of from their homes due to their wealth and equipment, and they were confident that their fortresses would defend them against Allah. But Allah's torment came to them from where they did not expect it. And He, that means Allah, created fear in their hearts so that they demolished their homes with their own hands and with the hands of the believers. Hence, O sensible people, learn a lesson from this. Their chief, Hay bin Akhtab and Salam bin Haqiq, went to Khaybar, and another group went to Syria. Note that Jews were expelled from Khaybar to Syria during the Caliphate of Umar Dilanu due to their mischiefs and conspiracies. The Prophet ﷺ seized their land, houses, weapons, and wealth. This kind of booty, where no fighting takes place, is called fay, and that belongs to the Prophet ﷺ. However, the Prophet ﷺ distributed the booty among early immigrants of Makkah, that means Muhajirin, and 2 Ansar, Abu Dujana and Suhail bin Hanif, who were very poor. The Prophet ﷺ kept a small portion for his family expenses. This all is given in Bukhari. Lessons for sensible people. فَاعْتَبِرُوا يَا أُولَي الْأَلْبَابِ. Allah revealed a complete chapter in Quran called Al-Hashr, or gathering. describing the lessons to be learned from the banishment of Jews and the underground activities of the hypocrites. In this chapter, in this surah, Allah also describes the noble characteristics of Muhajirin and Ansar in contrast to Jews and hypocrites. It also gives rules regarding the booty granted by Allah without any fighting by the Muslims. Allah's holy names and attributes are given at the end of this chapter. Ibn Abbas used to describe this chapter of Quran as Banu Nadir, chapter Banu Nadir. The fourth activity was Ghazwa Badr, the second Ghazwa Badr in Shaban 4th Hijrah. The Prophet made Abdullah bin Rawh in charge of Medina and set out for Badr with 1500 men and 10 horsemen to fight with Quraysh as mutually agreed in Battle of Uhud. Muslims reached Badr and waited for Quraysh. Abu Sufyan started from Makkah with 2000 men and 50 horsemen, but he was reluctant, discouraged, and fearful of fighting against Muslims. On the way, he gave lame excuses to his people to avoid war with Muslims, saying, "It is better to engage in war when there are plants and bushes to feed your animals which give you milk to drink. I see that it is a rainless year. Therefore, I am returning now, and I recommend you to return with me." None of his men objected to this. It shows that they also had the same fear as Abu Sufyan had. The Muslims waited for their enemy in Badr for 8 days, and they made good profit by selling their goods there. In this way, the Muslims regained their dignity and their positive image was established over the whole of Arabia. Alhamdulillah. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم.